Hello, welcome to Good Brave Men, Verity Crane. Today I will be exploring a Victorian studies text, Dracula, Stoker's Response to the New Woman by Carol A. Semp in relation to the book itself. We will explore this and also look at another vampire script in the form of the Iranian film A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night to explore an alternative moral universe and to negate some of the not-so-quiet rage felt when reading this book. Now, I will rant, and I'm just going to treat this like a bit of a neurodivergent brah, because this is all I can do. I don't know how to summarize my feelings any briefer. As Semp argues, Dracula is a reactionary text to the developing women's movement emergent in the 1890s and fervently vilifying open sexuality. So who is this dangerous new woman, and why does Stoker want to put her to bed? Women in the Victorian era were expected to be pure until marriage and dress modestly and not show any outward behaviour that was considered promiscuous. The new woman alternatively wanted education, employment, and to talk about what marriage meant for them. Discussing such wild topics as contraception, the new woman was dressed more comfortably and exercised, and there was a lot of bicycle riding. Bram Stoker was not wholly against women's education or employment. He actually was friends with many professional women and even new women's writers, and his mother had a great influence on him, having in her own time fought for women's working rights. Though the prospect of financial
have been chief characteristics of liberation, according to Semp, they were not truly Stoker's point of contention, and can't be charged, as Cunningham states, with the new woman becoming a symbol of all that was most challenging and dangerous in advanced thinking. The crucial factor inevitably was sex.
The new woman writers at the time were talking about sex frankly and began speaking about contraception and venereal diseases, such as contracting syphilis, which was a big killer at the time and cause of infant mortality. Stoker saw the new woman's open discussion of sexuality and safe sex as immoral, given diseases. The salient point that Semp makes in her work is that the female vampires present in the story, vampiric lust in general, represent this declining morality. Additionally, throughout the novel, the core themes of sexual repression pop up again and again, and lo, it is a sign of the time for both men and women. It is a great ethical arena for Gothic horror tension, seen in the innocent first protagonist, Jonathan Harker, whose professional trip to Transylvania and to Count Dracula's castle lead him into a dangerous trap. His diary entries describe in detail everything he discovers. One night he nearly meets his end when 3 female vampires tried to seduce and kill him. Harker is sexually repressed, described perfectly in the following quote: "The girl went down on her knees and bent over me, simply gloating. There was a deliberate voluptuousness which was both thrilling and repulsive. And as she arched her neck, she actually licked her lips like an animal, and I closed my eyes in languorous ecstasy and waited with beating heart." Jonathan closing his eyes demonstrates his inability to handle open sexuality, while at the same time he feels a desire to be ravaged. The lust is not his. It is not generated by him. He takes no responsibility for it. It is a sin and the product of unnatural demonic forces. It should be noted that of all 5 vampires featured in the novel, only one is a man. The female vampire is most represented. She who openly expresses her desires behaves in direct contrast to the expectations placed on female behavior in a patriarchal society, is the embodiment of vice in the new woman. But Stoker, as we know, does not hate women. There is a positive female character in Mina Harker, the wife of Jonathan, and as Carol A. Semp states, if it were not for Mina, the reader might conclude that Stoker is a repressed Victorian man with an intense hatred of women, or at least a pathological aversion to them. I love that quote. Mina comes to represent the female ideal. She is intelligent, thoughtful, embodies the motherly spirit. However, she is veritably sexless. It seems that women in Stoker's novel can either have one or the other, sexuality or intelligence, be evil or motherly. For Stoker's heroine's greatest virtue is her inherent trust in men, in their superiority, and it is her belief that she is saved by their bravery. Mina acts as the loudest mouthpiece to the patriarchal views of the story. Senf argues that although Mina may resemble aspects of the new woman, she adopts a very traditional role. Her career skills are used to assist her husband and the group, choosing to remain in the background except when asked for her assistance. She demonstrates many brilliant rational processes. The vampire truly never would have been caught if it wasn't for the clever use of information only she had access to. Given Dracula has bitten her and melded with her mind through a blood bond. However, she allows herself to be hypnotized by the moral authority of the story, the wisest and most educated man, Van Helsing. He is allowed to control her mind, devise the meaning of her mind dreams, so he can find Dracula. And despite how infuriating I found this book for all of that and more, I do love Mina, although I wish she would stop referring to good, brave men. And I quote from Mina when she looks after one of the good, brave men. I felt this big, sorrowing man's head resting on me, as though it were out of the baby that one someday may lie on my bosom, and I stroked his hair as though he were my own child. Dracula, page 205. I think she's beautiful, but I'm glad that I know emotional labor isn't free. Mina upholds a severe purity when bitten by Dracula, an experience akin to sex. As it is a seduction and noted to be pleasurable, she feels unclean and ashamed of herself. She represses the feeling, which saves her. Unlike Lucy, her friend, who gave into the sensation, and for it she becomes a vampire and is subsequently hunted down by a bunch of men, most of whom previously wanted to marry her, who turn her body into a moral battleground. Her fiancé, who helps to destroy her, is given permission by Van Helsing to kiss her goodbye only when she is dead and in pieces by his own hands. He is a compassionate butcher. Mina, on the other hand, is treated gently by these men. It is Van Helsing who, after his first meeting with Mina, best captures the ideal heroine. She is one of God's women. Basically a saint. He goes on to say, so little an egoist, and that, let me tell you, is much in this age, so skeptical and selfish. Dracula, page 170. I feel this line in part refers to the new woman, whose desire to question the norms could be interpreted as skeptical or selfish. Van Helsing plays the role of the moral authority in the story. He knows how to stop a vampire, he knows about the garlic thing, has ties to the Holy Roman Church, and directs everyone's actions, deciding what is right and what God would want, and he does not want a sexual woman. On the other hand, the vampire in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night does not punish women in her story for their sexual liaisons, or really anything, but rather shifts the definition of dangerous onto men, who would take advantage of sexual liberty, coercing or forcing what is given freely when chosen. The vampire in this case takes the place of Van Helsing, for if he is the moral authority in one story, she is in another. In Stoker's heroines and heroes, there is the slightest hint of sexual sensuality under control. It exists in order to be resisted. It is important for his characters to know evil internally so that they can consciously choose virtue. There is a shadow of this too in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Sexuality is aggressive and under the surface. Although in this case we are not left with the feeling that sexuality altogether is wrong or evil, but instead that it needed to be measured consciously and understood before it was acted on. What A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night offers is a romantic consent story. The two pivotal characters, the gentle boy and the vampire woman, are entangled in a kind of love, and although we don't see them actually have sex in a traditional sense, the tension is there, shown in beautiful interactions, and what is not there. We are relieved to see no one cross boundaries. The boy does not force the girl, amazing, and gets to live. But he shows her love, and she decides to embrace it. She decided, he decided. Anyway, there is a recognition of the various dynamics of power. That it is still a man, a historic danger, and she is a powerful weapon of morality. It is a transgressive gender story, exposing our delusions of gender roles, of who is the predator, the hunter, the brave, or the virtuous. Our boy is brave and submissive simultaneously. When we compare this universe to the one in Dracula with its stark gender divides, Stoker's story, despite featuring an intelligent woman, feels far less nuanced, occupied with superstition and fear of the new, whereas A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night seems to fear the old, the current, and the emergent of the old into the new world. The female vampire seems an apt figure to design a safer future. She warns the little boy not to become another bad man, not to blame women for men's transgressions, and certainly to never view them as the weaker sex. As Semp's text demonstrates, Stoker perceives his creation, the book Dracula, to be a compromise. By emphasizing Mina's intelligence, her ability, and independence before marriage, Stoker stresses certain aspects of the new woman are good, but by negating her sexuality, having her adopt a more traditional feminine role after marriage, and by showing her decision to abide by the group, agreeing to be hypnotized instead of making her individual decisions the most valued, he also reveals that she is not a new woman. The vampire in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, on the other hand, places no such expectations on women, or even men. Just ask them not to take what is not given, nor does she try to corrupt. Instead, she seems to be guided by an alternative matrix of value, one of her own devising, where the greatest virtue is not purity, but likely accountability and kindness. Things I think Mina could get down with. The end.